Hi, I'm Jim Holmes. I am the Test Studio Evangelist for Telerik. And in this podcast, I wanted to talk a bit about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's difficulties that we as an industry face around UI test automation. So writing scripts to do things like open a web browser and drive it around, or open up your WPF application and automate that around to do actions and verifications. It's an extremely difficult domain. There are great tools around to help you with that, but there's some fundamental things. And really, the subject of things that I've been writing lately and what I want to talk about in this podcast, this recording, are we failing at UI automation? And I think depending on how you view the question, there's three answers. No, we aren't failing. There are great tools around UI automation testing that have really evolved and taken great strides recently. I'm a vendor. I work for a product company. We make a commercial tool. I'm very proud of that. But you can look to other commercial tools as well. And then, holy smokes, look at the amazing successes of Selenium, Selenium WebDriver, Water, a number of other open source frameworks. We've seen an explosion of adoption of these tools, and they're becoming extraordinarily polished to be able to deal with things like asynchronous delays, AJAX calls. It's pretty amazing. The second answer is maybe. And this is kind of because while we've seen a great advance in methodologies like test-driven development, behavior-driven development, we're still not seeing great content and discussion around UI automation. So we're seeing things at the developer level, but we're not really seeing great advances at things for the functional test level at the UI. And then the last part is, yes, we might be failing at UI automation. And I really focus here on two areas. And one is newcomers to test automation, and then the second would be enterprises. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that enterprises and very large organizations are just extraordinarily slow to adapt to change. And so they aren't being able to take advantage of some of the advances in the methodologies of how we do UI automation or the better tools. And then with newcomers, sadly, I think we're just doing a very bad job of mentoring, passing on skills, and really giving them some guideposts to work with. So there are a number of impacts of this sort of failure. And whenever I'm talking about automated tests, regardless of whether it's unit, integration, or functional tests, I always pull out a reference to Roy Osherov's awesome book, The Art of Unit Testing. And back in 2009, Roy was extraordinarily forthright in his foreword to the book, talking about a project that he had that totally failed because of their approach to automated testing. They didn't understand automated testing well. They were writing extraordinarily brittle, high-maintenance tests, and in very short order, they were spending more time fixing those tests than they were delivering value to the client. And the client ended up pulling the plug on the entire project because of that. So, Roy is an amazingly bright leader in the industry, and for him to be able to talk about his experiences in the early day, I think is really important. So, I mean, the impacts of the failure are you could have that drastic extreme, right? So the client just pulls the plug on your project, he fires you, and that's it and done. But more often, the impacts that we see are decrease in velocity, impact to the morale of the team. You're constantly fixing broken tests. And then there's also there's a decrease in trust from your stakeholders and your clients. They see that you're spending more and more time fixing the tests and spending time kind of cleaning up after these things rather than delivering new value to them. So there are some significant impacts to things. So what are some of the causes? I think first and foremost, we have to look at some of the human factors that are involved here. And I think one of the biggest issues is that too many people don't look at test automation, particularly at the UI level, as what it fundamentally is. This is a software engineering effort. We often think of it just belonging in the tester's domain, but UI automation, be very clear, this is an engineering issue. You have technology that you have to deal with. You have systems. There's tool sets. And the approach to that needs to be an engineering approach. And then, of course, there's the human side. FUD, which is this awesome term, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We're humans, and manual testers, teams new to automation, manual testers who might not have great technical background but are awesome testers, all of a sudden they think, oh my God, automation is going to replace me, or I can't learn these skills. And so you have to deal with culture here. And then there's no kind way to put this. There's been too much snake oil sold to the industry around automation. And that's both from commercial tool vendors in the past, pitching tools that they feel would be this magic panacea where teams could simply point, click, click, drag, and be done with their automation. And that's absolutely not the case. This is a tough problem. There are no magic solutions for it. And consultants don't get a pass here either. Consultants have made a lot of money pushing tools, pushing approaches, pushing methodologies that might not be a good fit for companies when those consultants leave. So they spend all this time writing up these huge frameworks and touting open source tools and again, sort of a shift on that magic bullet, silver bullet approach, and really pushing forward approaches that aren't a good match for that organization. So there's also a number of thought leaders in testing who speak a little dismissively about automation because they don't feel that it's a good focus of testing. And automation has its limits, but it brings value. So there's a lot of the human side of things. We also have to recognize that there's some failures with technology. UI automation is an extremely complex domain that hits a number of facets across an entire project. And it touches every piece of the technology stack for the system you're building, because you have to consider not only the UI level, but you're hitting the database and the web application web services. A lot of this can be extraordinarily difficult, but you know what? It's fixable. All of this is addressable. First off, you have to acknowledge that there aren't any quick fixes. This is a large problem. But simply acknowledging that this is a software engineering issue and that it's a team issue, those are two huge hurdles to get over if you just acknowledge that. So I'm a firm believer, through my own experience of successful automation efforts, that the only way you're going to be successful with good automated UI testing is a whole team approach. And that's everybody from the stakeholders to the project managers, the developers, testers, acknowledging and sitting down and working together on it, deciding what needs to be automated, how you go about automating it, testers and developers pairing up together to get the automation built, regardless of the tool that you're using or the framework or the API that you're using. That whole team approach is critical. So the next thing is you have to take a look at the basic skill levels of the teams working with automation, and you have to be prepared when you're going into your project and acknowledge it's going to take time. And that means that on the schedule, not off the schedule, on the schedule, you have to build in time for education. You have to build in time for learning the tools. And then you have to build in time for maintaining your test suites and improving them and refactoring them and re-architecting them. Test automation at the UI level brings tremendous value to projects. But in some aspects, we're failing at getting it done successfully. We don't have to. Acknowledge that it's a difficult problem, acknowledge that you have to approach it with a whole team effort, and acknowledge that you're going to need time to get it done right. Automation's great stuff. I believe in it. I love it. But you've got to approach it with open eyes and a realistic view. Thanks for listening. I'm Jim Holmes, Test Studio Evangelist with Telerik. Thanks.